am not a record holder. I haven't broken any records. I haven't done anything long enough, faster than anybody, better than anybody. I've done some things that have been pretty incredible, but they're not record-breaking. There's nothing I've done in my life that I could consider to be a record. I've been a part with a group in respects to records. The Columbus Italian Club, at one point, we had made the world's largest meatball, but that was a group effort. I was just part of a gang. Nothing personally. There was a time, ladies and gentlemen, where I thought career-wise that I might obtain some sort of record, that I might stay in one particular vocation for longer than anybody, outlast them all, at least in the market I was working at. I'm talking about radio. That didn't work out. But somebody who I know very well might just do it, might just break the record. My name is Dino Tripodis, and welcome to Whiskey Business, a podcast not so much about whiskey as it is one with whiskey. The guest bottle tonight from our producer of our YouTube channel, John Whitney, brought this one when he was on a little vacation. Michter's Unblended American whiskey. Yes, American whiskey, not a bourbon, because it is not aged in new barren burbles and new barren and new and new bourbon and new bourbon barrels. It is aged in older soaked barrels, so they have to call it whiskey. But we're going to try this out and check it out and see what it's all about. And if it comes from Michter's and it's a small batch, it's got to be good. It'll be the first time I've ever had it, so I'll be interested to see what all of us collectively think. The person I was referring to that might actually break a record here in Columbus, Ohio, in respects to radio anyway, is a previous guest. He was with us early on in the infancy of whiskey business. It's Jerry Elliott from QFM 96, back with us once again. You, my friend, were our first two-parter.
It was a lot of fun, I recall.
Whiskey business.
I recall.
It was a great time.
Yes, we got on a little bit of a roll.
We got into a roll, and we were.
We did 30 minutes. We did, what, 2 hours?
Yeah,
it was good.
If I recall, there was a pee break, too, that made you guys stop.
Oh, yeah.
There was a pee break. And you are currently now at QFM for how many years?
Labor Day, this past Labor Day, was 28 years.
28 years. Now, your predecessor.
September of 90, the day Stevie Ray Vaughan died.
Oh, wow.
My very first day. People were weeping in the hallways, and I remember thinking, was the show that bad? And they said, no, Stevie Ray Vaughan passed away. And that was my very first day on the air. So that would have been September 3rd of 90, I think, something like that, yeah.
And your earlier partner was on for how long?
Now, Daddy Wags did...
I'm talking about at one station.
He did 33.
Did 33 years.
Well, no, he left and went up to Detroit for...
Do we count that? Do we
3
count
years,
leaving,
4
coming
years.
back?
No, yeah, if you're
you
just talking Q, he'd be like 29. I don't know how long he was in Detroit. I think he might have only been up there 2 years, so we'll give him 31. So people always say, how long do you want to go? And I said 31 in one day.
One day? No, you're going to go longer, aren't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Are you going to shatter it?
But I always just want to beat him by, one day. And
just
I'll be
by
happy.
one day.
Yeah.
You still like it? I mean, obviously, you do.
Well,
we talk about...
That's much better than the first class.
The first class was bourbon. This is American whiskey, so...
I like it.
What do you like about it?
I like it. I like the absence of oak.
And at the same time, is it bourbon-like?
Yeah, it's got a little smoke to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
Some of the notes are very bourbon-like, a little caramel.
I get we had a big debate on the air, a week or so ago. Is Jack Daniel's a bourbon?
No, it's a sour mash whiskey.
And you look at it both ways. The people said it was. People say it wasn't. They say it is, but it's marketed as Tennessee mash whiskey.
It is,
but
Tennessee.
It is basically a bourbon.
No, it's
but
not.
They market it as
It's a sour mash whiskey.
Is it?
It's a sour mash whiskey.
Yeah.
I don't care what they say. It is. There's sour mash whiskeys and there's bourbons, and it's a great sour mash whiskey. It's one of my all-time favorites.
And it has to do with where it's distilled, right? And it's in Tennessee.
Well, the whole it doesn't have to be made.
You
in
could
Kentucky.
still make bourbon in
you
Tennessee.
Yeah, you can still make bourbon in Tennessee. That's a myth. It doesn't have to be in Kentucky to be bourbon.
Okay,
that's an old wives' tale. But we're moving away from my first question, which is, how much longer do you think you got in you?
Yeah, we were shocked when you made your exit there, and everybody still misses you. But
That's very nice of you to say.
I would think I'm hoping. I got a 3-year deal a year ago, so I still have 2 years on that.
I had one
now
of those too.
Yeah, well, I know. There's no guarantees. They're pretty one-sided contracts. But I'd like to do 2 more 3-year deals. That puts me at 65, 64, 65. So if I could get there, I'd be, I say that now, but I'm sure at 64, I'm still going to have bills to pay and vacations I want to go on.
And things you want to do.
It's tough to give it up, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It was very, very hard to give it up and walk away. But
were you still waking up at 5:05
first couple
and
of weeks,
panicked? Oh
first
my
couple
God.
of weeks, I woke up thinking I'm late for work. Yeah. And then I've now settled into like somewhere between 6:30 and 7:30 groove, which is still early.
Pretty early.
Still early, but not for radio. I mean,
Well, you're a writer.
You're
a writer.
Now I'm a writer, yeah. and a podcaster. Yes, my mother's so proud.
This is one of the better. I'm telling you, this
my mother's
podcast.
so
You do
proud.
not give this podcast enough credit. This is one of the bigger ones in the city.
Well, that's very kind
Yeah,
of
you
to say as
do.
well.
You're doing very well with this. I'm happy to come on.
And you know what? Just like in radio, everybody
And
said,
thank you for the limo, by the way.
You're very
See,
welcome.
he was being nice.
It's nice.
Before he, exploits my victimization for downloads.
What I used to say.
And we can't get to that, I've decided. But first things first.
What I used to say in radio as well, because people say, "Oh, you're so great on the radio." Man, right here, John Whitney, which you can't see right now, but he's producing the YouTube
a hell
channel.
of a talent.
Hansberry over here producing the actual audio part.
Right.
All I'm doing is talking to delightful people like yourself. So
He's right.
these guys. I know, man. You got to have good people. You got to have good people behind the
Is
scenes.
this every Wednesday?
Every
You do a
Tuesday.
weekly.
We try to go weekly.
How did it go down at the racetrack when you were doing it at the casino?
The racetrack, we did it. We used to be down at Scioto Downs over there at Brew Brothers.
I would think the ambient noise and everything would really help.
It was fun, but it was distracting only because the people at Brew Brothers weren't really there for the podcast. We were a distraction, just something up there that they wanted up on stage on any given night. And people did listen, but not everybody listened.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit distracting.
Sure,
when we did when we did the podcast festival and went live at the Short North stage, those people were specifically there for the podcast. So that's a whole different audience.
Right.
And next year when we do the Whiskey Business podcast comedy show at the Funny Bone.
Yes.
I like it.
That's going to be, once again, people coming for a specific reason, for comedy and for the podcast.
Right.
We're going to combine those two worlds. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, no. Everybody at Scioto Downs was great. It's nice. Our time with them is done. So we're moving on. And when it comes right down to it, though, right here in our little whiskey.
In your
business
whiskey,
studio,
you cover it off. I mean, we just said bourbon, Tennessee sour, Scotch. Do you do the Scotch?
we do all whiskeys. We've done some scotches on the show.
Bourbon drinkers generally don't favor Scotch. Have you ever noticed that?
I used to be a Scotch drinker
drink-
before I was a bourbon drinker.
I think at the beginning of the night, whatever you start with, that's what I stick with.
That's
It's
a good-
hard to
that's
go
a-
from bourbon
that's a
to
good
Scotch
rule of thumb.
once you got the
It's a good rule.
taste for the bourbon there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I saw
Yeah.
Johnny Walker's coming out with a white. Johnny Walker white. They got like 6 or 7 colors now.
They got a bunch, yeah. So
Yeah. My favorite whiskey, of course, J&B whiskey. So smooth it whispers.
was that
Whispers in my ear every morning. You're
like
gonna,
that. Was
you're
that
gonna puke again, Jerry.
was that your Scotch?
You dumbass.
Was that the Scotch that you drank? Was that the Scotch that you drank? when you
J&B.
were
No,
drinking Scotch?
I was Johnny Walker.
You were Johnny Walker.
Yeah, my dad could drink a red, black. He could the regular. How many were there back in the day? 3, I think. I think
All I
there were
remem-
3
all I-
originally, because he would blindfold and we'd put them at the table, and he could tell them all from taste.
Yeah.
The red from the black. I mean, that's because it's pretty subtle.
Yeah. The black,
now,
the
blue
red,
you could pick up
the
pretty
blue.
easily.
The only
really
time
good.
I've had the blue was with Ron White.
When that came out, it was $200. Yeah, they sponsored his tour.
Yeah.
I had a bottle with him on the bus.
On the bus as well. Yeah, me too. Yeah, on the bus with Ron White.
Hey,
He goes, it's liquid heroin. Is what he told me.
now he's on the tequila thing.
Yeah.
Because he has an interest in the company.
Yes, he does.
So he's doing tequila now.
He's doing all right for himself.
He seems to be doing just fine.
But I still like Scotch. I still like I'll still pour a Glenlivet or a Macallan's and I don't go into the smokier, peatier, mossier scotches that a lot of Scotch drinkers love. But bourbon right now, bourbon whiskey is the number one whiskey seller, and I think Scotch has dropped down to 2. And then it's the Irish whiskeys after that.
So what is this one I had a few weeks ago? A guy made a big deal. I had the bottle at the house. It was a gift. I'd never had it. This Redbreast.
Oh, the Irish whiskey.
That's an Irish
whiskey.
Now that was clean.
That's a beautiful
That
Irish
is
whiskey.
a clean. I mean, people are used to Jameson here in the States. Way better.
Yeah, Redbreast is
way better.
Lovely. I've got a bottle of that over there as well. We've had that on the show. Actually, I think I brought it 1 week as a makeup for Hansberry because we didn't
do an Irish whiskey on St. Patrick's Day.
I see.
Time, and then I made it up and we brought in the Redbreast, and that was really good.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we've done the Tullamore Dew, and we've done Patty's.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
And the Jameson Black.
The Jameson's
barrel.
Black and the Jameson's just Jameson's, regular Jameson's. Yeah, we get the Irish whiskey.
We get around.
We try. This makes our 68th bottle, by the way, on Whiskey Business as far as sampling. So we've gone through 68 different whiskeys over the course of this podcast.
Oh, it's not very manly. And then I kicked that motherfucker's ass.
Hold on.
For those of you just
I've not had a cigarette in 2018.
Yeah.
And I always have some nicotine in me.
When'd you
If
start
I'm not chewing, I was doing the pouches. When I wasn't doing the pouches, I was doing the snooze. If I don't do the snooze, I got my gum. I do the gum. When I can't do I'll put a patch on when I fly. I always have some form of nicotine, but I have not lit a cigarette in 2018.
Let me ask you.
I'm proud of that. Now I don't know if this shit's any fucking better.
The Jewel.
Yeah.
I don't, but
What flavor?
this would be your mango.
Your mango, nice.
The cute.
Yeah, for those of you just listening to the audio portion of this podcast, Jerry's talking about he apologized for vaping. All right, so let me ask you 2 questions right out of the gate here,
Go.
and one of them goes back to what you started talking about before. As far as the nicotine, you say you're never without nicotine. When did you start smoking? How old were you?
22, 23.
So later in life.
Yeah.
Not as a high schooler. You didn't.
Yeah,
you weren't sneaking behind the school or across the street like we used to do in Steubenville over at the steps of the Salvation Army.
Never did. Both parents were smokers though, and both are no longer with us. So for me to continue to smoke, but I got that nicotine addiction, and I'll tell you, I could quit everything. You name it, but the nicotine's the toughest thing.
My father died of lung cancer, and look at me.
Yeah.
It's
the toughest.
And I watched him.
Don't they say it's like harder than heroin?
They said, but I'm not going to find out.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's really
Next
see.
Week on
Next week on Whiskey Business, we shoot up to see if heroin's harder to kick than smoking.
If ever to watch the YouTube
And
video.
when I came in, now that you no longer do it at the studios, into your home here, I have been here a few different times, but I didn't realize until I came in. We played cards here on a Monday night.
Right.
We did shows at the Funny Bone.
Right.
And I was on the radio at the time. Mm-hmm. Where were you living before this?
Where
would the early 90s have been?
Early 90s were, because I came here in 2001 to this house. So we were over
I
on
have been here before, but I remember
East California. Big spread, big apartment.
Big
on
ranch.
Big. It was ranch style. Yes.
It was at night. It was late. I remember that.
And it was a huge apartment. It was like 2,000 square feet, and it was the guy who owned it is who I rented from. That used to be his property manager's apartment. And when his property manager bought a home, he says, "I want to put a good tenant in there. You've been a great tenant." He goes, "I'll slash the rent down to something ridiculous. And I saw it, and I went, yes, please. Yeah.
But we used to play cards there, right? On Mondays, in
Yes.
the 90s.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Those
remember
games
those.
would rage till
I remember
it was time
those.
to go to
but
work.
when I went down to the basement and saw the room, I was like, oh yeah, I remember sitting here. So that would have been post 2001.
Down here, 2001.
Yeah, that was
over there.
Andy Man,
God
couple
bless,
of
God rest his
comedians,
soul.
you and I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was all kind of people that walked in and out of these
good to be
doors
back, I'm
over the
sure.
years. There were Russian mobsters that walked in through the years. There were
I'll take a little
all
bit
kind
more
of
that,
crazy
Johnny.
people.
What have you heard from Dom lately?
From Dom Irrera? Not much since his
Did you see the roast?
since the Comedy Central roast.
Now, what did you think of that? I thought he was fucking phenomenal, but he says good morning and I laugh.
Yeah,
I don't
sure.
think they got him there, really, because he was like the old guy
He was
there.
the old guy, and they took some shots at him too.
Yeah, they did. And who did he say blew him off in the hallway?
Gosh, I don't know.
Who was the other one of the roasters? A name, and he basically called him an asshole. Oh, it was great. He is one of my favorites. He's a funny
Fight
fucking
Club,
guy.
dude. Who's Fight Club? Not Brad Pitt, but
Somebody else was on the.
There were a lot of bad people on that show too. That should have been up there.
Yeah, right.
But what was my favorite slam on Dom? Oh, because they were making fun of Sybil Shepherd, and
And him and Bruce are buddies, eh?
and Jeff Ross said, speaking of moonlighting, I want to thank Dom Herrera for taking off a couple of shifts on the Macaroni Grill to be here tonight. Or something like that. Something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
get it.
And they cut to Dom, and Dom's like, what?
Yeah, he's pretty lost sometimes.
My favorite, I worked with him last couple of years down in Florida, down at Side Splitters over
In Tampa.
In Tampa, Bobby
Yeah,
Jules'
yeah.
place. And we stay at the owner's house, Dom, myself, and Bobby. And it's about 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm making coffee. Dom comes out of his room, in his robe, making coffee. I go, yeah. He goes, hey, Dean. I said, let me ask you something. I go, what? He goes, what do getting fucked in the ass and spinach have in common? It's 11 o'clock in the morning.
Fucked in the ass and spinach.
Yeah.
All right.
I go, I don't know what. He goes, if you didn't like it when you were a kid.
Yeah.
And he gets his coffee and just walks back into his bedroom. And that's it. The 11 a.m. show with Dom Irrera, ladies and gentlemen. Dom Irrera, your headliner.
there we go.
I haven't been into back to L.A. in years, but it seems to me that the 20, 30-something comics eat him up.
Yeah.
That he's got a whole newfound
Right.
fan base.
I'm glad for that.
I am too.
I'm glad for
I
that.
am
He
too.
deserves that.
Because he gets respect, and he should.
I mean, he should. He's a
gem.
He's one of my favorite podcasts on this show is with
Yeah,
Dom Irrera.
yeah,
Dom did
yeah.
our podcast, and it's
Yeah.
still one of my favorites. I listened
Well,
to
you
it.
had the Italian club guys in the
Yeah,
studio.
we did. Yeah, it was a
Very
great
funny,
night.
very funny.
He deserves everything that he gets, and if people are starting to show him the love and respect that he deserves,
Oh, he's a funny guy.
by all means, he still makes me laugh hard. All right, so you mentioned the nicotine since 22. Then you also mentioned that your dad was a drinker. He could tell.
Yeah,
that
he was a Scotch guy.
He was a Scotch
He was
guy.
Scotch.
So, did your whole family drink? Was your dad a heavy
Mom
drinker?
was a wine drinker. Dad was no, not really.
Just what'd he do? What'd your dad do?
Christmas, my dad was a traveling salesman, and he was an inventor.
An inventor.
He had 3 patents over his life, and upon his passing, we found out he had 22 patents, but only 3 we knew about. And
Did
2
he-
of them were big.
What were they?
Well, 2 of them were. One of them industrial type inventions. It was conveying a magnetic, and it's long and boring. But our garage was basically his shop. You could never put a car in our garage because he had all his stuff out there. But even as a kid, I mean, he especially designed mops with a ball at the end so you could get in the corner. I mean, he had all kinds of shit. And we only knew about 3 of them. And then when he passed, we found out he had 22 total over his lifetime.
Are any of these viable products that could be put?
Well, the
put
patents
into?
run out. Patents run out. And the Japanese are currently making a version of what he invented back in the 70s and the 80s. He used to have a Volare station wagon. And he didn't have a truck. Well, he had no money. He had this station wagon, and he built a prototype of this conveyor, this machine that he hauled around in the back of this, and he was a sales rep, traveling salesman, and then one of the companies that he repped, he just inserted his own stuff. So he would sell those along with everybody else's products. And he pulled me out of school, and we'd go to TRW, General Motors, Chrysler, for the big three. He did. Never got rich. He was a dreamer. Dad was a dreamer.
But hey,
he was a dreamer.
Good for him.
Yeah, always.
Did he consider
a Disney movie?
Did he consider himself? Did he consider himself a success? Or because
I think, given his marriage and my brothers and my sister and I think in that sense.
Or did he think because none of these actually?
He spent his whole life worrying about money. That was fucking never had enough. How do I get more? I got to invent more. I got to work harder. He wasn't around a lot when I was little. He was working so much, and he was gone so frequently. But I know when he was on his deathbed, because working comedy, I was I'm home during the day.
Right.
And so I would go back when I would visit Detroit, and towards the end of his life, my other brothers, my sister, they were working during the day, and I got to be able to sit with him every day at his bedside. And I remember he said one of his, and I openly addressed it too. So when you die, Dad, if you could, any sign you could give me, or if you're a spirit, can you come back? And we talked about shit like that. It was really cool to have that time with him. And he said one of the regrets he had was your mother always with the cigarette. Your mother all she ever wanted was a fucking cruise. That's all. And I couldn't. He goes, I should have put that on a MasterCard, taken her on the cruise of a life, and not fucking worried about it. He goes, now I'm laying here, and you know what I mean? So he had regrets. He didn't want to go in debt for,
That's too bad. Now, did the inventing gene pass on?
My brother's very mechanical.
Yeah.
I'm creative.
Is that your out? Is that your out?
I'm telling you, I am not mechanical. Well, at the radio station, I can't plug shit in. I'm really bad.
I was the same way.
Really
24 years at a radio station. I can't run a board.
Job
Can you run
security.
a board?
No, I can't run
Can
a
you
board.
run a board?
Security.
I've never, 28 years, I never pushed a button.
Not a goddamn button.
Never pushed a button. I had a producer every single show I've ever done.
Someone would rush in at any given point and say, "You're off the air," and I go, "Well, we're going to stay off the air." Because I don't know what the hell to do.
Yeah, no, my brother was a tech, a mechanical type whiz like the old man, but my mother was a piano. She majored in music, and she was brilliant. She could write music. She arranged music. She could play piano, was fine. I know people always brag on their parents. She was truly a pianist. I mean, everything from Jerry Lee Lewis to Beethoven. I mean,
did she write her own
She majored in
compositions
music
as well?
in college.
She
wrote music. She could read it. She was no one in our family played piano. She taught out of the house. Because when you're a kid, you want to be a pussy. Nobody plays piano. But as an adult, you look back and go, how cool would it be if I could sit down and fucking play piano? Hey, Dino.
Would have just been a pussy for a little bit.
Jerry's going to come on and play piano for us this week. And drink some whiskey.
Because now, as an adult, when somebody sits down at the piano and starts playing, I get so envious.
Oh, I do too.
Right?
And it was right there. I could
Chopsticks.
have had free lessons my entire.
I always picture, and there's always that beautiful woman go, "Do you play?" I play a little.
Bill Murray and
Chevy
Groundhog
Chase.
Day.
Chevy Chase always was cool at the piano.
And you sit there and you punch out somebody to watch over me, and you sing it pitch perfect. Oh man,
You just learned one song really well.
Now let me ask you a question here. I know we both like to write, and I want to get to that movie you did too. I got questions on that.
All
but
right.
you're writing now that you're not getting up and your schedule has changed. You mentioned you write in the morning,
right?
For 5 days a week.
Yeah, I'm 4 to 5. Yeah,
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I found it's very, very tough.
It was tough. I
find it's hard to write. They say if you're not a writer if you don't write. You got to write.
I tried to
And
write
it's hard.
when I was working at the radio station, but you know, a lot of people. You probably still get this. Oh man, what do? You talk for a couple minutes at a time. You got the easiest job in the world. Fuck off. No, it's not the easiest job in the world. It takes a lot to do a morning show year after year, day after day, to be fresh and on your game, and to have the longevity that you had and the longevity that I had for a certain degree. And that takes a lot out of you. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do.
Well, that's because we're still putting into it. That's why.
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys get so many years and then they feel secure and they just start mailing it in.
No.
And that's a huge mistake.
So creatively,
I don't take it for granted ever.
No, and I never did
do.
either. No. But creatively, you come out of there like, okay,
Oh,
now
no,
I gotta
right.
work on this.
It's hard to come home and sit down and write.
And that was that was when you mentioned the film, when we were working on the film and putting that together. I mean, that was like, that took a lot of where am I pull some energy out of the well. I mean, for John too. John Whitney is the director of the film you're talking about, who's our producer of the podcast, and you know, he works a regular job too. So I mean, he had to expend the same type of energy. He's working, you know, a 9 to 5, and then
and that film was, I mean, you hired actors, you had scripts, I mean, the editing alone for that film that I did a documentary, and
I like your documentary.
I had $25,000 in that. I had $25,000 in that, and just doing that, I realized the amount of work, and that was before everyone was doing a documentary.
If we would have had $25,000, we would have probably hired somebody with a notable name to.
Well, I think
to be
5 of that was the editing, because I didn't have a John.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
5 of that was the music and the editing.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say how much we spent on our film. Am I allowed to say? Yeah, $8,000.
Yeah, that's amazing.
$8,000.
But it's a piece of art.
That's cool, though.
I mean, you sit in the theater and you watch that fucking thing and you go, "Wow!" I mean, what a project of passion.
I mean, $8,000 with the cooperation of a lot of talented people, actors on deferred payment, and cast and crew that volunteered their time and equipment, and you know.
If I were to say, I got $100,000,
yeah.
John's here tonight, and I'm gonna give you $100,000 cash,
yeah,
and I'm not gonna bother you.
Go on.
You spend it the way that you could. Do you have already a project waiting?
Yes.
That you could do.
Yes.
Times 10 with $100,000.
Deep Throat 3.
Forrest Hump.
No, yeah, we could do something with $100,000.
I mean, for guys like you,
oh my gosh,
50,
yeah.
even 50, you
Even
could
50.
you could do it upright.
Well,
because the festival thing I found it to be, when I was entering festivals, for those that don't know, you complete, and your heart and soul is in that thing, isn't it? I mean, it's like a baby, and it depends now. What were you paying to get in the festival? I was paying $75 to $150 per festival, and then they reject you, but that's just to enter,
right?
And whether or not you make the festival. So I was $2,500 in entry fees, and I think I got in 4.
Yeah,
I think I did. We were in 4 festivals.
We entered how many, Johnny?
I almost got in Traverse City, which is a big one. Michael Moore's.
We probably entered about 30.
30 of them.
Yeah, average of $35 per entry.
Yeah.
Only 35. Boy,
Well, they were smaller
average.
festivals,
Oh.
and they were
Well,
smaller
I did,
festivals
yeah.
too.
20 some
Well,
or
Cleveland was 150. If I
We
recall.
did enter Cleveland. We didn't get into Cleveland,
Yeah.
but we won Toledo.
Yeah, that's good. That's cool.
We won Toledo.
Did you go up for that?
John did. John did.
It's a nice night, huh? Makes it all worth it, kind of, for that one night. Yeah.
John
right.
brought home the
get
hardware,
it.
or I should say the glassware, because it was the
get it.
Glass City Film Festival and the
Toledo.
and the
It was a little turd on a Tony Pacco's bun.
the award was a lovely glass trophy. It's nice.
It was a.
So you want to still do that? You want to still try to make films?
I still I have a couple of ideas for TV. I have a sitcom idea. I've got a bunch I could write about. I got a great sitcom idea. I got a great like an FX style. It would have to be a cable show. Mm-hmm. Maybe even like an HBO network like that. Well, a Netflix now today would fit on there. It couldn't be a network, but it's an hour drama.
I have ideas
It's about
for
a junkyard.
A junkyard?
You ever been fascinated by junkyards?
You are?
No, yeah. You don't see them anymore, first of all. but it's I won't do the pitch for you, but the premise is the guy unlocks the gate with all the mud, and it's a shitty cloudy day, and he opens it up, and the camera comes through the gate for you, John. The camera comes through the gate, and everywhere you look. Well, didn't you ever go into a junkyard and think every car? How did it? What's the story?
What's the story of the car?
So you zoom in on the tail fin of an old Cadillac.
I like that idea.
And then it's the couple that bought it brand new. And then the next week it's the hubcap of a 65 Impala SS, and it's the guy he was the third owner.
Tell me the name.
His dad
What's the name of
handed it out. I don't have a name yet.
Oh.
And each episode.
Quantum Leap,
and
Junkyard
then
Edition.
You could even have one that kept coming back where the car, you could do it from the beginning when it was brand new on the showroom. Because a lot of cars have 4 or 5 owners, or used to, maybe not anymore. But I just thought, man, you could do so much. You know, the couple that die in the car at prom.
Every car's got a story.
You know, they get drunk, and that's how it ended up there. The guy, I think it's
that's a great idea.
I think it's a real, because, junkyards always fascinated me. And then my sitcom would be a minor league baseball team. I spent some time with the Columbus Clippers at the old stadium at Cooper Stadium, and I went underneath the stands where the grounds crew worked, and it was a sitcom.
Yeah.
The guy, the Mexican, spoke no English, yelling, the funny characters. You'd have the owner of the team. I just think you could do a lot with a minor league, and nobody does sitcoms, and now everything's so hip.
Right.
And how they do them. What if you did a sitcom in 2018 and you filmed it just exactly like a Barney Miller, or the way they used to do them? What was that called? Was that a 3-camera?
Yeah.
A 3-camera as opposed to...
Which still to this day, one of my favorites, Barney Miller.
Yeah, right.
And still holds up. Even though it was in the 70s.
Sense, yeah.
Even though it was in the 70s. And granted, some of the issues were 70s issues, but the acting and the writing was just superb, and all the characters were. Yeah, I would love that. I would love to see that.
Somebody
that
try that.
Yeah.
Because what are you watching now on TV? You do any other reality?
No, not too much reality. Only reality show. My only guilty pleasure, reality-wise, is America's Got Talent. I don't know why.
Well, not even that kind of reality. I'm talking like American Pickers.
Every once in a while.
You watch Ghost Adventures?
No.
Zach Baggins.
No, I don't watch the. I'm tired. I'm tired of them. Seeing an orb and no.
See?
No.
I
like
heard,
Mysteries at the Museum.
Go fuck yourself. I don't hear go fuck yourself.
Mysteries at the Museum, Ancient Aliens.
Yeah.
I'll tune into some of that stuff every once in a while.
Yes.
Well, now, and the one guy on Ghost Adventures, do you watch Ghost Adventures?
No,
you know,
but
you know who Zach
about,
Baggins?
yeah.
He's the leader. He's got a museum in Vegas, and he's really like a brand now. And he wears black horn rim glasses.
Yeah,
He's like an Art Bell guy, one of those types. But there's one guy on there, his name's Aaron, and it's like the old, Aaron does all the heavy lifting while, I'm going to send Aaron down to the basement and while he has to lick Satan's ass. Meanwhile, I'm at the Hilton.
Episode.
I'm at the Hilton enjoying a baguette. I mean, he sends that
Studying
fucker
the
into
ZDP.
everything. The cave. There's the back of the cave where it's called Satan's asshole. And we're going to send Aaron down there. Meanwhile,
He's following the old.
I'm enjoying a little whiskey with Dino.
I'm dating.
Poor fucking Aaron.
I'm dating myself and going back to my childhood, but he's doing the old Marlon Perkins thing.
Pretty much.
In Wild Kingdom.
Remember Marlon Perkins?
Marlon Perkins would send fucking Jim.
What was his name? Jim. Yeah, Jim. Yeah.
While Jim wrestles with a Bengal tiger.
I'll be up in the tree with the camera, documenting the whole thing. That's true.
I'm back in the
That
hut
is
enjoying
true.
a
That's so
margarita.
true.
Who would have thought I'd get a margarita in Africa? But yeah, it's the same deal. So you got good ideas, but you're writing now as you
Write
do.
drunk, edit sober. I'm looking over John's shoulder.
Ernest
That's
Hemingway.
a horrible idea.
Ernest Hemingway.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yes, you can.
No,
Yes, you can.
you write drunk, then yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Can you?
Yes, you can.
Keepable stuff.
Well, that's just it. You write drunk, you edit sober. You're like, oh, okay. No, that was, brilliant when I was writing it. But
See where you're going there.
But there sometimes you can actually glean something from that madness.
Yeah.
To
just let it go. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got halfway through my book. I haven't talked to you since Dino and I were trading texts, and we were going back and forth, and I had this idea. And
Great idea
I'm
for
big crime guy. I read 48 books last year. I read 47 the year. I always have a book going, just always one going. So they're like adult comic books, half of them. But I mean, this crime, it started when I met Elmore Leonard, and I got involved with Elmore, and I loved the guy so much.
I got to interview him as well.
And,
before he died, that was.
This is a funny story. I was at his 85th birthday party.
You were at his birthday party?
Yeah, up at Oakland Hills Country Club in Birmingham, Michigan.
Oh man!
No, it was Ken Calvert's birthday. I'm sorry, and Elmore was there, and boy, I'm going to name drop here: Bob Seger, Elmore Leonard, my wife and I. And our host, the birthday boy, Ken Calvert's 60th. Wow. And we're all standing around. And I knew I'd met Elmore before. And he had to quit. I don't know if he had to, but he quit drinking for many years. He had quit drinking. And I guess, he would reward himself. He'd write like 11 to 4, and at 4 he'd have a drink. Mm-hmm. And then pretty soon he was having that drink at 2. And then it was, he ended up quitting drinking. And we're standing in the circle, and we're talking and bullshitting, and if you ever met Bob Seger, he's the most regular guy. It's like, oh my God, that's Bob Seger. And then 5 minutes after, you're talking here. He's the most regular type of guy. But Elmore, I was fascinated with, and he's got this fishbowl of red wine, this big, huge glass of red wine, and he used the saying, and I've never heard it before. And I said, Elmore, I thought you quit drinking. And he had a cigarette going, and he had it in the same hand as this thing, and he took a big sip, and he says, Elliott, I'm 85 years old. Fuck it, I'm pulling the goalie. He took a big sip. Fuck it, I'm pulling the goalie. And then I found out later, through my buddy Ken Calvert, that I think that's from one of his books. But fuck it, I'm pulling the goalie. Oh, we laughed. It was great. But I'm a big fan of Elmore and all these crime guys. Yeah. So I got halfway through this book I was writing, and which was hard for me to do because every time I would sit down to write, I would go back and read what I wrote, and then I would spend the whole entire new session changing what I wrote in the old.
You can't do that.
And you have to move forward. And I learned that the hard way.
You gotta go.
But I got about halfway through the book, and then I started a new book that I was reading, and it was my fucking story exact. It was my guy, not my guy. I mean, it was similar. This is C.J. Box.
Yeah, okay.
He's a game warden out in Wyoming. Joe Pickett's the character. And my guy was Northern Michigan, a sheriff who returns home from homicide detective in Tampa, goes up to the small town of Michigan. Now he doesn't want to be the reluctant sheriff in small. And it was way too close. So I deleted the whole fucking thing.
No, you didn't.
You didn't. Hours in there.
No, you didn't delete it.
I had hours.
It's still in a trash bin somewhere, right?
No, it's in there. Yeah.
It's in there. God damn right it is.
Then mentally, for like 2 or 3 months, I kept.
Because the character's still solid.
The character made this new one, and kind of like a write what you know thing. My kid was in the Special Op Marine, and he's living down in Nashville, and I was down and looking around, and I thought, boy, this is a good setting right here. Former Marine, shit goes down. So now I'm about 100 some pages into this, and I'm glad I did the one previously.
Sure.
But this one's flowing a lot better.
It's
a lot better. Man. And I'm writing every day, or 4 or 5 days a week.
That's how it works.
But it was so hard to sit down. People say it's work, and you go, you're right. It's fucking work. It's hard. But if that was your job, if they said you got $300,000 or $100,000, we'll do 3 books for me. And you can sit down every day from 9 to 5. That'd be a little different.
That's sure. Yeah, a little more incentive.
But doing it as a hobby in your off time. And I don't even know. I need an editor. Where do I find someone that does the whole thing?
His wife.
Really? I've never done that.
No, I know.
I need someone to take the whole thing when I'm done, dump it in their lap, and go make it look good so I can at least submit it. And I know it'll never get published, but
How
I'll
do you know
publish
that?
it. I don't know that.
You don't know that.
Self-publish.
Well, self-publishing is kind of big right now.
But I
There's
want to hang on the wall all the rejection letters anyway. So
I got a
I'll go
box
to
full of
Penguin.
them. I got a box full of rejection letters upstairs. Yeah. My favorite one is from the New Yorker.
Did you ever? Oh God.
Oh yeah. It was very. First of all, I was thrilled that they actually sent me a rejection
A little
letter.
cartoon you saw. One of those New Yorker cartoons. Who's that guy that did that?
That would have been good. All it said
so
was
fucking bad.
All
your
it said
dreams.
was, "Dear Mr. Tripodis, this one is not quite right for the New Yorker. Sincerely." That's just a very one line, but somebody took the time to write it.
In
It's
the
one of
1980s, I did it up through the 90s. What was the name of the big book? It was like a Bible, and it was every freelancer would buy it. It was called
The Writer's
the
Market.
Writer's Market.
The Writer's Market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you'd buy this big book,
Sure.
and what I would do is I would put to words my routines from my act, and I would find out how they would fit, and then I would sell them freelance to magazine, AAA magazine. Remember I used to do that old routine about my dad on vacation?
Yeah.
He'd be swinging in the back seat, and with every swing the car would go
dude.
through lanes.
I know
and
exactly
the
what you're talking
cigarette
about.
butts out the window. I would write my routines, but I would tailor them to whomever. And I sold quite a few that way.
3 of them I did for
Did you?
U.S. Air.
Oh, U.S. Air, yeah.
US Air
Oh, the
magazine.
airline. I could
On
see
the
that.
airline. 3 of mine.
I
We're,
could see
we're,
that.
We're on the back page of, and it's
Oh, that's
basically
great.
the same thing.
Yeah.
Just kind of formatting your act to something that,
Yeah.
that looks like a humorous article.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did 3 of those. So
All right. Well, we've been going 50 minutes here. Should we talk about 42? Should we talk about the incident?
really,
If you want to. 42
I-
minutes.
Do you have questions? What did you hear? First of all, because I don't think a lot of today's Columbusites remember
Well,
that, and
well,
it wasn't. I'm not making it like it was a.
no.
It was a big deal for me because I was a victim of a crime. But
there's 2 things that we'll get to. One of them, that was one of them.
I will do it for you. I'll talk about it now,
but
but
I
I
was-
don't like to go too deep on it.
But I was, I was going to respect your wishes, and I understand that was kind of a fucked up situation
Yeah, it was.
and rather traumatic. We're talking about the fact. So we're good. We're good. You give me the green light here.
We were on competing radio
you
stations.
give
at
me the green
time.
light
Yeah,
here to talk
yeah,
about this.
Yeah,
You were kidnapped.
I was.
Literally kidnapped.
Now, let me ask you this: when that went down, did you think it was a stunt?
No.
Working across the street at the other radio station.
No, and I'll tell you
'Cause,
why I
this was,
did.
John, how long have you been in Columbus?
About 27 years.
Do you remember when that went down? I mean, it was front page Metro section.
No, I'll tell you why I
the
didn't.
case, the court, the trial was.
I'll
brutal.
tell you why I didn't think it was a stunt, because I still had to this day even, I still had the, whatever you want to call it, the PI gene in me. And
Oh, yeah, right,
So
right.
I did not think it was a stunt. I knew right
Yeah.
from the get go this was the real deal. This is
Yeah.
not, and maybe I was still new enough in radio where I wasn't aware of what would be a stunt. But when this came across and I heard about it, I'm like, no, this is the real deal.
I was carrying after that for probably 5 years.
Go-
Until it just became such a burden, constantly having your gun with you. You know, it was just like
What
it
happened?
was such a fucking burden.
What
My first marriage, they had a family-owned business, and they did. The old man's just brilliant. He was. They were from West Virginia, and they moved up here to Columbus. He did in the early '70s with the boom here. Columbus was, you could see it coming. University town. A lot of new construction, neighborhoods going in, and he opened a window and door, wood, not replacement, not vinyl, but wood, new home construction.
Sure.
And he was the only distributor from, I want to think, from 70, I don't know how many years he had it, but he was the only one. If you were building a new home and you wanted quality, it went through him. So he had every new build in the city for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And he killed it. Just absolutely killed it. My first wife worked for her father in the shop off Bush Boulevard there, and they had, I don't know what peak maybe, I don't know how many employees, but it was a nice company. And a guy worked for them over the years that the old man had plucked off the streets here in Columbus, down on his luck. Not a delinquent by any means, but he gave the kid a job, and he was part of the family more or less. And the kid got married and had kids, and I would go to a pool party at their house or at Christmas, and this guy would be there, and he would have. And I don't know what the relationship between the old man and this guy were as time went on, but I just knew him as an employee of the company. And I come home from work, like we do. It would be like 11:30 a.m.
Sure.
And so I was living in Dublin at the time off Sawmill Road, and I pulled into my driveway. Summer day, it was close to, it was like noon. And I pulled in my driveway, and I hit the garage door, and the garage door goes up, and I pull into the garage. And before I can get out, I see in my rearview mirror, Toyota 4Runner pulls up under the garage door and is almost touching my bumper in my garage.
All right.
What the fuck is this?
Yeah.
So I open my door, I set my bag on the stoop, and I walk out, and I go, hey, and I see it's this guy. And he's got another guy with him. And he says, get in the car, motherfucker. And I said, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And he goes, I need you to make a phone call for me. That's all. It's all cool. I just need you to make a phone call. And,
But he starts with get in the car, motherfucker.
Yeah, now bells are going off,
Sure.
but it's broad daylight. I'm standing on my own front lawn, but it's middle of the day. There's nobody
around.
It's a weekday. There's nobody around. So I'm like, no, I think I'm good right here. I'm gonna. And then he's becoming insistent, and I'm trying to think. There's no way I'm gonna run. And then the guy on the passenger side gets out, comes around the back of the vehicle, lifts up. It was like something out of a Sopranos.
Yeah.
The sweatpants and the matching zippered
Sure.
silky jacket, and he pulls it up, and he's got a piece in his waistband. And I was like, are you fucking kidding? He goes, look, just get in the back, make the phone call, and there won't be any trouble. My issue,
My issue?
He says the issue. Your motherfucking father-in-law owes me motherfucking money because they had fired him. I forgot that.
Okay.
They had fired him like a month previous or some shit, and he was saying he was owed $150,000, right? And he wanted me to make the call to my father-in-law at the time, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to get any. And it goes on. And so when I see the gun, even though I'm at my house, I'm thinking, well, I'll make the call and they'll let me out. So I get in the 4Runner. Mistake number one.
Yeah.
Child locks on the doors, tinted windows. I cannot get out. I mean, they were ushering me, and it's not like I hopped in like we're going to the zoo. They usher. I'm in the back of the vehicle. They get in. They back out of my driveway, and now I'm going for a ride with these two clowns. And they kept me. I think I got home at like 7 that night, and it was not good.
What happened
was not good.
from the time they picked you up to the time you got home?
Well, we called. I tried to make the call that he wanted me to make, and we couldn't get a hold of the guy. We couldn't get a hold of my father-in-law. I couldn't get a hold of him. Leaving a message, hey, these guys got me. Well, we're not going to let you go until you get us our fucking money.
Until you get us our fucking money.
Yeah, you got.
They put it on you.
Make the call. We're going to get the money. When we have the money, we will let you go.
Did you eventually get a hold
and
of
my
somebody?
one son, who was a preemie at the time, he was saying, and when we let you go, we'll fuck up your kids, especially that little. I mean, it was real personal.
They threw everything personal at you.
It was really personal. And
so what they said if you.
So I got very scared. We were on 161 in Sawmill right now, and I remember thinking, this is for real. And I started to get obviously I was pretty shook. And
understandably so.
We couldn't get him. We drove all around the city, and I'm making phone calls, and I couldn't get him on the phone.
Did they think you were
take
lying?
me up to
Did they think you were lying?
Polaris.
Did they think you were lying?
Well, they were dialing it, and I mean, you could hear the message go to voicemail, whatever. They take me north of the amphitheater, Old State Road, Powell, up there where the amphitheater used to be.
Yeah.
And we go up north of the amphitheater into this cornfield.
Okay, well, that's never a good sign.
And I thought, I thought that I was so
We've seen Casino.
I was so afraid
No, dude.
that I was no longer afraid.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. I was so afraid, and I'd been with him a few hours. This was like 3:30, 4 o'clock now. That I'm pissed. I'm tired. I'm exhausted, and because I'm a radio guy, I like a nap in the afternoon. So I had to have a nap. I'm getting a little cranky.
I'm cutting into my nap.
A little cranky at this.
Let's forget about the kidnapping for a second. I'm sleepy.
When we went into the cornfield, I thought, well, I got nothing to lose now. So I'm starting to look around thinking, what can I do? Mm-hmm. And they pull into they turn around in this cornfield, and it's just corn on all three sides and the tracks that we made going in. And they're facing out. They stop, and he says, the guy in the passenger seat, his name was Art. And he said,
This is the guy with the piece.
He could sense that I was kind of being liberated because I thought I got nothing to lose. And he turned around and he said, motherfucker, I know exactly what you're thinking. I mean, like he was experienced at this or something. I don't know. But he nailed it. He goes, I can feel you don't. He goes, you can get out of this. You can walk away from this if you don't fuck it up.
This is the guy with the piece telling you this.
Yeah. And the other guy's like a
Because right now I'm
wreck.
telling you, at that point,
sweating.
he does not want to kill you.
He's sweating. No. I don't think they want to murder me.
No.
But I didn't know that at the time.
But sometimes these things
go
south.
Or
but the fact that he said that.
And he was brought in from New York for this job, apparently.
Yeah.
So we make the call from the cornfield, and I get through. My father-in-law picks up.
Really, in the cornfield, you finally get a hold of him? How
was
was the reception?
We get the well, they wanted 100. It was 100 grand they wanted, and I could hear my father-in-law. All I could hear was the driver's description. And he's going, "Well, motherfucker, what do you mean?" And he's okay, 50. And so we went from 100 to 50. They settled on 15 grand, and I'm like,
15 or 50?
I took the phone from the guy, and I go, pay the fuck. He thought it was a joke. He didn't. He goes, they're not going to hurt you. And I'm like, fuck you. I've been with him for 5 hours now, and 4.5 hours. Pay them whatever they fucking want, and they're dickering, and I can hear them. They're arguing over.
They're bartering.
Yeah,
Haggle.
over
haggle.
Well, and I think the guy, they settled on 15 grand. And now I'm hurt. Personally, I'm a little hurt at this point. We started at 100.
150
I'm on
grand.
the radio. Fuck. 100, so we end up
I'm
with
down to 15 grand.
I have 15. So they end up, they set up a drop with my father-in-law at the Continent.
Which was thriving at the time.
So we go over to the Continent, and the guy that had the gun, Art, takes me and he sits me on a park bench, and he's sitting there with me on this park bench. He goes, if you try to run, I'll fucking put a bullet right in your back, and I'm out of here. He says, I don't. So, and he was, and so I stood there, or I sat there rather. I sat there, and we sat on the bench while the other guy, the driver, the ex-employee, drove to the bank to meet my father-in-law. And my father-in-law at the time and while we're sitting on the bench, a lady comes up to me and goes, "Oh, I love your show." And I'm trying to play along. I got to throw that in there. So you have no idea. I wonder whatever became of her. I don't think she ever knew.
You tell the gun guy, she's a fan. Give me a minute.
So anyway, the guy goes to the bank, and my father-in-law, the bank was closed. He gave him a check. So the guy accepts the check. My ex-father-in-law goes home.
Right.
He comes back. He's in the parking lot. He tells Art, "We're good." I got it. Well, fuck, success. I don't think the guy holding me didn't know how much it was for. He runs back to the vehicle, and they're gone. I'm sitting on this bench. It's like 6 p.m. now, and I'm just
by yourself. It's over.
So I call Shamrock Cab. I get a cab home. My wife, the daughter of, she doesn't even want to call the police. Oh, that's just how he is. He thinks we owe him.
That's
she's
just
down
how
for-
he
well,
is?
I think there was a lot more going on at that time that I wasn't privy to.
Okay.
With the father, with the I don't know, but I think there was. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to kind of connect the dots, but I couldn't do it till after the fact. So
Did you have a
the
good
guy goes the following morning and tries to cash the fucking check, and Columbus police are on him, but he's alone. Art's nowhere to be
Art's
seen.
nowhere
He's
to be
back
found.
in New York City, you
Sure.
know, and so. He got 8 years, and then the trial. The trial was brutal. We were competing with Howard Stern at the time, who was on at the Blitz, and he said, "Oh, it's because it was in the dispatch. It was front page Metro section."
I remember.
And they followed the trial like it was a sensationalized thing.
Well, yeah.
And
I mean, that's
and it was going in there every day was the most gut wrenching. It was so horrible. It was so fucking horrible.
Let me ask you.
And the way the news people hounded me, they camped outside my house. It was really bad. And he was guilty, found guilty, sent to Orient for 8 years. Guy got out, and it's the same guy that just 7 years ago, did it to the Ohio State basketball player. Same thing, tied him to the chair, took his ATM card. It was the same guy that took me. And he went on the run, and I think they got him down in New Orleans, and I think he's in, what's the big, Rayford? What's the big bad prison in Louisiana there?
It escapes me at the moment.
I think he's in Angola. I think he's in Angola. But I haven't heard anything since, but he did the exact same thing after
Two questions.
with me.
Two questions. Number one, at the time, did you have a good relationship with your father-in-law?
Yeah.
15
Yeah?
grand.
He's,
So he was willing to pay, but he bartered.
yeah.
All right. Two, at one
And maybe he did owe money. Maybe he did owe him 100.
and at any point during that,
I don't know.
did you feel that your life could end?
In the cornfield, yeah.
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 Did you think that Art
Oh, he was capable.
was capable?
He was capable.
And,
There's
and,
no
and,
question.
And would have done it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because psychologically speaking, if someone,
Oh, no, I was shook. And it took me,
if someone
like I said, I
says-
carried for probably 5 years after
if
that.
someone says, "I'm gonna," I know what you're thinking. You can get out of this. Mentally, they're already determined that they don't want this to happen.
Well, I hope that was the case at the time. I mean, it was so traumatic that, I mean, you're thinking, you don't know what you're thinking when it's going down.
No.
You have no idea what you're thinking. And
And did that leave? Yeah, obviously, it left you somewhat feared and paranoid for a while.
yeah, I carried a piece. I bought a piece legally and carried it in, going in at 4:30 a.m.
Sure.
We were working downtown at the time. I carried that piece, but like I said, it just became such a burden to be healed all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, it was something else, man. It was really
Does it still pop into your head from time to time?
from time to time. But I don't, like I said, I don't know where the guy is. We could track him out. And the prosecutor, Doug Stead, the judge, the detectives. I had a state like years later. Okay, that was in '99. That was in September of '99, and I want to think in like 2013. I'm at a party. I'm at a bar, and a guy comes up to me, and he's a state trooper. And he says, "Yeah, you don't know me, but I was assigned to you for about 60 days." And I go, "What do you mean you're assigned to me?" He said, "Back when you got kidnapped, I was outside your house every morning when you left for work for 2 months." And I was like, "Wow, I had
You never
no
knew that.
idea."
Wow.
No
And he
idea.
said, "And by the way, when you go next door to your neighbors to smoke pot in his garage, you may want to tell him to put the door down."
So
Yeah, we had a state trooper watching us for close to 60 days. We had no idea.
So let me follow up on the humorous note there for a second. All right, and ask a stupid question. All right, if you were to get kidnapped today, How much you think you'd go for?
Well, I would hope I appreciated the like 20. I would hope there'd be some sort of. Although maybe with age you probably depreciate.
I mean, no.
I'd be happy
You have a
with
legacy
like 10.
now.
If it was
you
10,
were still kind of a newbie at the time.
If I could take 10, if I could get 10.
You think you think to go
Pay a couple
with
bills.
today's kidnapping prices?
You
You think you'd go for $500,000 at least?
Well, inflation. And the thing is I really don't think about it that much anymore. And I know you wanted to touch on it, and I initially said no.
I know you did.
You know what people don't realize every day in life is that element, that shit is around all the time.
All the time.
And people are not prudent. People don't realize that. You have to keep your eyes open and know where you're at and who's around. People go into bars where they don't look. They don't.
I do.
Man, my back's
I
to
do.
the wall, and I'm always in the corner.
I do.
I noticed.
Hansberry, how many times have we sat together and said, I don't like to put my back to the door?
Yeah.
Yep.
All the time. Still to this day.
You look at the door.
I'm always on the lookout.
I
for
go to a strange
anything
bar,
hinky.
a new bar. I go to a new bar, a new place. I'm immediately, just instinctively, just out of habit, I'm looking at the exits. I'm looking at and I'm looking at the people around me when I'm around, and I'm like, I always try to stay at least 2 to 3 steps
I
ahead
have
of
a
a
good
situation.
good friend, Italian. His uncle was connected. Let's just say, not using
I don't know.
names.
I understand.
can
What do you
say
mean?
that.
What do you
I
mean?
can say that. Well, I was going to give a name, but I won't
I
do
understand.
that. But he was in town. You would know the businesses and whatnot.
Yeah.
And construction. And he told me, because I'm the godfather of his granddaughter, he told me, he asked me privately at a baptism, he pulled me aside and wanted to know if I wanted him to look into it.
Sure.
And I said, absolutely. Absolutely. And I was so honored. I was so honored. And a couple months go by, and I saw him again, and he pulled me back aside, and he goes, let the police do it.
Okay, interesting.
Police got it. They got the one guy.
They got the
this isn't something that
So art.
we know who it is now.
Art's in the wind.
Art's in the wind.
Art's in the wind.
Art's in the wind.
Still for hire. Still able to.
I don't know if
Affordable too.
I keep
apparently.
thinking I'm going to see him somewhere, but they said he was from New York City. Now I don't know.
No.
New York City. I said
No,
that like a hit.
you're not gonna
He's
see-
from New York City.
You're not going to see Art again. Art was just somebody.
Muscle.
It was muscle. You were just.
And then that basketball player, I got brought into that
Sure.
in the article because they said it's second offense, second time this guy's done it. And I'd like to talk to that basketball player sometime. He was a former Buckeye basketball player, right? They took his debit card and they emptied his account, and he was tied up. And
At least you weren't tied up.
yeah.
Did they treat you? Did they treat you well in the time that they had you? Were you comfortable?
There was-
Were you having
Snacks?
a little something? I don't know.
No, I really wasn't. No, I really wasn't comfortable. No, I remember I had to pee
Was there
pretty
was,
bad
was
too.
there was there
And
conversation?
they were not going to let me pee. I remember
Was there
that.
conversation? Did they converse with you? Did they chat with you? Did they?
No, they chatted amongst themselves, and
Never talked to
they
you?
would. No, not really. No, only
I
to
would have
threaten.
been-
Only
I
to
would have
threaten.
been a blabbering idiot.
Only to threaten. And we'd pull up at stoplights, and with those smoked windows, I'd be looking over trying to. Help me! And they were on me. They'd turn around and, yeah. Tough times, man.
Interesting times. Definitely.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
well,
it was
thank-
crazy.
like I said,
And then the marriage dissolved shortly thereafter, like immediately after. And then I found. So I don't know. I don't want to disparage anyone here, but I don't know probably the full story to this day. But I just know I wasn't taken because of who I am or something I did.
No.
I was taken so they could get what they want, like a
Right.
pawn. Like to these two guys,
It just
I
happened to
was
be
like,
that
you
you
know,
were working at QFM at the time, but this had
I was
nothing
like
to
a
do with QFM.
movie, TV, radio. He works in radio. He'll get us they'll pay for him as opposed to somebody else. I don't know.
If they would have taken another member of the
which
family.
was horrible thinking in hindsight.
They had a plan.
So,
as fucked up as it was.
Let's do a commercial here. Where do I go on YouTube to see this?
On YouTube to see the
Whiskey Business.
Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis. John will
Okay.
tell you exactly.
I'll just do a search on YouTube.
I have one more
Whiskey
thing for you.
business
before
with
we
Okay,
go.
that's
Dino
fine.
Tripodis, yeah.
Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis.
Okay.
Because there's some other
And then
whiskey business entities out
I
there.
see all your stuff on Twitter, so I'll.
Yeah. And
Instagram.
You may want to edit out like the first 40 minutes. we kind of it started kind of slow, but we ramped it up.
I'm going to end on a fun note
Should
for
have
you.
started drinking at 7. That
I'm
was
going
the
to
key.
end on a
Instead of 8.
I didn't even tell Hansberry about this.
Uh-oh.
So
Song and dance number.
pretty damn close.
Uh-oh.
Pretty damn close. I did not know Wags until we both of us left our comedy worlds and came. We talked about this on the earlier podcast with you,
Right.
that I was offered the job first. But my first meeting with Wags wasn't even an actual meeting. I saw Wags for the first time. Talk about being probably suspect and what the fuck's going on. I waited for Wags in 1985 when QFM was downtown.
Yeah, on
when he was
Gay Street.
Yeah, when he was working with Pat.
Yep.
Pat and Wags.
They were big.
I waited for Wags to come into work in the morning because I wanted to give him something. When I was in school, in college, I played music.
Okay.
It was a duo, Doug and Dino. We played at what was now is the Thirsty Scholar.
What
on
instrument do
Avenue.
you play?
I play guitar.
I didn't know that.
I play guitar and I write music. Nobody knows that.
Play guitar too?
Yeah.
It's a bon vivant.
Well,
This guy does fucking
I've written a
everything.
shitload of music. I've written a shitload of music. But I used to play
McGuffey
guitar.
Lane open for
Does
him.
everything.
McGuffey Lane over me. Yeah,
Except
no.
eat pussy. He won't do that. It's the oddest thing.
Sign of weakness.
He writes. He makes movies. He's a guitarist. So you had a duo,
It
huh?
was Doug and Dino. All right, and we played music on campus.
What's happened to Doug?
Doug is now living in Florida, selling wine.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Yeah, but we used to play on campus, and we had a lot of fun. We were actually pretty popular at the time. We played at the Black Forest. Now it's the Thirsty Scholar. We used to play at the IP Lounge on campus, a little dive bar.
Yeah.
And I wrote a lot of novelty songs. And after we got done playing, I got married and had a baby, and I had these 2 novelty songs about Ohio State that were fun. And I was at the time I was working security, catching shoplifters at Lazarus before they were Macy's. At Lazarus. Yeah, at Lazarus.
I remember that.
Yeah,
Lazarus, okay.
yeah.
And what I did was I grabbed this group of musicians. One was a saxophone player that worked on the dock. One was a keyboard player. There were 3 lovely black women who worked cosmetics, who I got as backup singers. And what I did with my brother-in-law at the time was record these 2 songs. And I made for you young kids. There used to be something called 45s. Remember 45s?
yeah.
Singles.
Yeah.
All right. And I made a single.
For the record, one of the first things I noticed when I walked in
You saw that?
is a 45.
All right, I got it.
All right.
I got it ready to go.
Oh my!
So I took this 45 down to.
Are these original songs
Oh yeah.
or parodies?
No.
They're
songs.
original novelty songs.
The original
Okay.
novelty songs about OSU. One's called the OSU Blues.
Dr. Demento like.
And you know what? My neighbor just mentioned that the other night. He goes,
Yeah.
"Why didn't you send it to Dr. Demento
Yeah,
at the time?"
right.
All right, 1985, and I took this 45 down to Daddy Wags, and I had like 2 minutes to explain to him what it was, and he's like, "Oh, okay," and he took it and he went in, and that was it. I mean, that was my goal, just to get it
In his hands.
in his hands. You know, we did get it in all the jukeboxes at the time down at Ohio State. So my first encounter with Daddy Wags had nothing to do with our radio careers.
Yeah.
It
Now,
was-
did him and Pat use the song?
I honestly don't remember. if they did. But for you, Jerry Elliott.
Oh, let me hear it. This is great.
For you, I am going to play first the A side, and then the B side, which in today's climate with Mr. Kavanaugh, if he would have gone to Ohio State, the B side would have been his theme song.
Okay.
I like beer.
That's the tease for side B. But this, and I apologize because here we go. I don't think you need to.
When I came to college, I thought everything would be fine. Graduate in 4 years was the objective in mind.
What year is this?
1985.
When no one told me about the obstacles in my way, like having to go to class every day, and how am I supposed to understand professors like these? Before I take the math, I gotta take Chinese. I got the OSU University, the OSU. I got the University, the OSU. I got the University Blue.
Who's the female in there?
3 black girls
Oh, from
that worked at Cosmetic
Oh,
Counter
that's great.
at Lazarus.
Ah,
Well, here I am in college, I'm not doing too great.
they're good.
Going average is a 0.98. Well, I'm doing my best to try and get somewhere, but I got sophomore status, no major declared. I'm trying pre-law and I'm trying pre-med. Battle's not a major, major med. I got the OSU, University, the OSU. I got the University, the OSU. I got the University.
Little instrumental right here. I was 24 years old. I wrote it, I arranged it,
Yeah,
and we recorded it.
yeah. Back then, he probably could have played it. I mean,
He may have.
yeah. Wow.
Because in my 20s, I actually thought I was going to write music.
Where did they print the 45s at?
I have to look on the label.
Yeah,
We're,
'cause they got to stamp them.
Well, I finally graduated, but I feel like a jerk because I got this diploma, but I ain't got no
Where did you record it at?
I'm working in McDonald's for minimum wage. I got the
West
there's the
U.
payoff right there.
University Blue,
It's
West
got a
U.
catchy little hook.
University, oh, West U. University Blue.
There was a recording studio, a recording workshop in Chillicothe.
Fade out.
Gonna fucking haunt me in my sleep tonight. I got the OSU University Blues. I got the blues. Wow.
So yeah, that was the A
So
side.
you had those You had those stamped.
You had,
and
had
the B side
there
was
the B side.
second song.
The B side.
That's generally how it happens.
Well, not.
No, yeah.
Side is so stupid, but you'll probably like it more.
It's
and like
just-
I said, hang on a second.
I'm just thinking 80s, mid 80s morning show.
Yeah, exactly, right? And that's what I was thinking. Actually, my thought process was, oh, you know what? I'll do it for OSU, and then I'll change it to MSU.
Oh, I could.
PSU,
PSU. Yeah, right.
PSU.
Yeah.
I'll be rich.
This is the Kavanaugh theme song. Side B.
The Brett Kavanaugh theme.
If Brett Kavanaugh went to Ohio State University, this would have been his favorite.
Sounds like an Oompa band.
Hold on a second. All right. Old record player.
Well, summer is done, college is here. Screw the books, pass the beer, light the bomb, tune the tone. Everybody
Is that you?
stone, having sex, doing drugs, getting drunk. My God, we're going crazy, 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 crazy. And everything's hazy, 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 hazy. Everyone's lazy, 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 crazy, crazy. It's just the start of another fun-filled year at OSU.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
You know what it sounds like? Who's that? Who's that Put-in Bay act? Ray. What's his name? Yeah. It's like every acoustic act ever.
I call this my salute to the striptease right here.
No idea you were a singer. No idea.
I'm not. I think this proves that I'm not.
yo.
I wasn't a good student. Big finish, ladies and gentlemen.
I wouldn't want to be the guy that goes on next. Let me just say that. It's you.
There we
Yeah.
go. 1985, ladies and gentlemen.
Now, was Doug jealous of your success after that?
Well, we used to
You
play
struck out on your own?
acoustic versions of those, and people,
Cher didn't need
back at
Sonny.
the
You
time
didn't
when
need Doug.
When we played those in the bars, people went crazy. So I thought,
Let's get Haywood Banks on the line.
oh my god. So yeah, that was my little treat for you.
Multi-talented. I love it. I wonder if Wags would remember that.
I don't know.
Have you ever addressed it with him
I
post?
never have addressed it with him in all those years.
right.
In all those years.
Right.
But when
we used to get over the years, we'd get a shitload of cassettes and CDs. and
Right.
A lot of people. And sometimes they would stick. Sometimes we would use them. And they would stick. So maybe they did play that back then. I don't know.
I don't know if they did or not.
Yeah.
All I know is that all the jukeboxes on campus put it on their jukeboxes, and it played. And I actually sold a few.
And people would play that.
But there was like.
That's great.
It was a recording workshop in Chillicothe. I don't even know if it still exists, but you could go down there for a reasonable amount of money. And like I said, I gathered up these people. You play saxophone, you play drums, you play piano. This is what I want. My brother-in-law produced it, and that was my first encounter with Daddy Wags.
Oh, that is great.
On a cold winter morning.
Trying to think the last time I saw him, he was he's doing well. Both his parents are still alive.
Wow.
They're like 90, in the same house he grew up in. Yeah, he's over there pretty much every day at their advanced age. Between that and the grandkids, he's pretty busy. And people always say, why don't you have him? Let the fucking guy rest, would you? He did it for 33 years. He entertained your ass.
Yeah.
Let the guy
And you're going to go longer.
do what he,
You're going to go longer. I predict
Yeah,
at
I think
least
Wags is a little better with his money.
I wish I was a little better with my money.
He never, he was a clean liver, that guy.
You know what it is. Hey, you spend what you make.
Yeah.
Right? You spend what you
right.
make. So my question before we go is, you think I can get that on QFM now?
That's more sunny. Although the B-side,
the
we
B-side.
can use the B-side. We'll let
B-side.
Sonny have the
Yeah,
A-side.
take the B-side.
Yeah,
Oh
let
my
me
God.
run that by the Torg. Dino, thanks, man. It was great. It was a lot of
Jerry,
fun.
No, thank you, man.
I love you, buddy. You know
best
that.
Best of luck with the writing.
You know that.
Best of and continued success with the radio, man.
I'm going to keep doing it.
Honestly,
I'm going to keep doing it. Writing and radio.
Writing and radio. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
And where are we at now? What's this, September? How about next summer we do it again?
Next summer we do another
Yeah,
one?
you
want
wanna
to
do it next summer?
The first 4-time?
That'd be my third.
Well, the
Yeah,
two-parter.
two-parter counts as
two-parter
two.
counted as two.
Why not?
What are you
Just
going to
kinda-
do with this?
This is a one.
Dog's
this
breakfast.
This is a one.
We're gonna
This is a
cut the last
one-parter.
20 minutes out.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna cut out the music.
All
We're gonna cut
right.
out the music. I did record a couple of videos to put on Instagram.
I love it.
with the turntable
Love
and
it.
everything. Which, by the way, that turntable is like an old.
It's cool.
It's an old. Ream Caliphone record player
Yeah.
that they used to have when we were in grade school.
Do you have vinyl around?
Do I have vinyl around right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, to play on that.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like
Oh, yeah.
real
Oh, real
albums,
vinyl.
old. Yeah.
Downstairs in the basement, tons of vinyl.
Really.
Oh yeah, we play vinyl on poker nights. You can remember that.
My
We used to play
mother,
vinyl.
my mother had a thing for Dean Martin.
There you
was
go.
I
a
got
kid
Dean
when
Martin.
I was
I
a
got anything
kid.
you want.
Yeah.
Our guest has been Jerry Elliott from QFM, who is currently, whether he realizes it or not, going for the record in
Is
longevity.
there anyone local longer than me now with Corby's passing?
No, dude.
Do I
was,
hold
you
it?
know, no, you know.
Well,
I mean,
Sean, she's not on radio
I
anymore.
wish I never wished you any ill will, but I was always trailing you in years as far as radio.
You started.
I started after you.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
93?
Yeah. 94.
94. Yeah, I was
94.
90.
You were 90, so you always had 4 years on me.
Yeah.
So the only way I would have eclipsed you, which is let's be honest, that's why I got out.
I remember.
That's why I got out.
I remember when
I was never
you
gonna
and I
get-
had
was-
lunch and you asked me, so what do you think? And you tried to keep your hand in Los Angeles and
Yes,
still
I
do
did.
radio here. I tried it for 2 years. It doesn't
Yeah,
work.
I did.
You know,
I did.
you're in Columbus, Ohio, and you get a phone call. Hey, can you be at
Right.
the CBS lot at
Right.
2 for an audition?
Well, I
You
was
go,
going-
oh, no,
I was-
I'm in Columbus.
I was only the
I
co-
tried to make it work.
I was
couldn't.
only the co-host in that first year, so I had the freedom, for lack of a better word, to still go out, and I still was doing sets at the Comedy Store. I
Yeah,
would go out
yeah.
like once every 6 weeks to LA and keep my
Yeah, that's
my
what I
spot.
tried to do. I
Yeah,
did the same
and,
thing.
it
Where I'd
got-
go out
it got
weekends.
hard.
It got real hard and expensive.
And as I told you in the last podcast, I didn't think the gig would last more than a year, so that's why I kept going back out there to keep my place, you know.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden,
Hey, you know who Tommy Davidson is?
yeah, of course I
Tommy Davidson. You'd know him if you saw him. If you don't know the name, funny guy, actor.
And Living Color.
Yeah, he was a big fan of mine out there in the late '80s, early '90s. He was a big fan of mine. He said he just thought I was just great. And I leave, and it never registers. You know, whatever happened to.
Right.
Like 25 years later, he's headlining the Funny Bone, and he comes in studio with us, and we're talking, and it occurs to him about 10 minutes, and oh my God,
Yeah.
you're that fucking guy. I
You're that
remember
guy.
you. I used to watch you, and I was like, yeah, man, I was a big fan of yours as well. You know, we used to work a lot of those clubs out there, so yeah.
You made me a promise.
I
on the-
know I did.
On the
I
last
did.
time we did a
I did.
podcast, you made me a promise that
Oh,
you would come
boy,
back up on
yeah,
stage.
See, I just have.
I'm still keeping my foot in the water. We have a big Christmas show coming up in December.
Yeah, that wouldn't be the form. I would do a new talent night for my first night back.
Why? All
I
you have to
wouldn't
do is
go
go
up
up and
and
do
get-
5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
They would love it. They would love it.
I could do my new guacamole. I got a new bit on avocado.
Oh, well, there you go.
I could do my
There you
avocado
go.
bit.
You
I could
got a
do
new
the
bit.
avocado bit.
Don't do it now.
Take those two funny parts out of the kidnapping story. I could do that. And yeah. Thanks, Dino. Appreciate it.
All right,
Play the
Jerry
song,
Elliott
the
has been our
45.
guest.
Yeah.
The guest bottle
I
almost
know
gone.
it's you.
Michter's
I'm gonna
American
have a drop
whiskey.
more before we leave.
Sure, American whiskey, not a bourbon because it was not aged in new barrels to begin with, but damn good.
I thought
got
it was wonderful.
we never said anything about the whiskey. Did we like the whiskey?
I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah, I thought the
Yeah.
whiskey was fine. It was smooth. It has hints of bourbon. It's almost like
It does drink easier than a straight whiskey.
Yeah, it does. It's almost like it's they can't call it bourbon because it wasn't aged in bourbon barrels, new bourbon barrels to begin with. But it's like when you go to the swap meet or the flea market and you get the Paco Rabanne.
Oh yeah.
Or the Calvin Klein perfume. It's like that. It wants to be bourbon, but it's not. It's just good.
Right.
It's just good whiskey. So
When I bought that watch in New York City, it was a Rolex.
it was a
I bought the Rolex. That's pretty small, man. I thought I was getting a deal.
All right, Hansberry, help me
All
out
right,
here
Hansberry,
because we've
thanks.
almost gone through the whole bottle. We obviously, if you are watching this on our YouTube channel, you already know about it. But for those of you who are listening and only don't know about our YouTube channel, tell them about that. YouTube.
It's a whiskey business with Dino Tripodis.
Yes.
Please subscribe.
Yes,
to the
please
channel.
subscribe to that.
We have an Instagram account, Whiskey Business Podcast.
Yes.
Subscribe to us there at iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast.
Whiskey Business Show is our website.
Yeah.
Also, let me just double check here and see if he sent me any information.
And rate and review us if you can, just because that helps get the show exposed to other people and other fans,
And I'll share it.
and tell your friends about it. Word of mouth is a very.
So what was our total runtime on this?
So right now we're about an hour and a half. I'll trim it
Do
down.
you
a
find
little bit.
that do you
John-
find that people have a tendency to watch like the first 30 minutes and then they bail?
I don't know.
Is there any way to measure that?
I don't know how to measure that. But we also
Counts as
started.
a
We also
listen,
started
so we'll
merchandising.
take it.
We're
It's
at
a click.
we're at teesprings.com/stores/whiskey business show.
This is big. Yeah, you can buy
Teesprings.
your own
You-
Dino Diggs T-shirt.
Yeah, we started merchandising. Our first T-shirt is out. Something that I said a while back on a
I think the
podcast.
guest should get a T-shirt.
free shirt.
If you go to teesprings.com, you can order
I
it.
will do that.
But our first T-shirt is something that we said on an earlier podcast where I get pissed off where people just buy whiskey and don't
Right.
drink it and just save it. Go, oh, look what I have on my shelf. Fuck that. So the T-shirt says collect art, drink whiskey.
Yeah.
So the whiskey
it.
lovers, whiskey lovers will understand that, and that's our first T-shirt that's available.
I'm embarrassed how quickly I went through a Woodford Reserve a couple weeks ago.
Why should you be embarrassed?
Oh, God, I drank that. I love it. My wife's a big wine drinker. So how much wine?
So no
what I mean?
competition.
Yeah.
she's
I love
not. She's not asking for
I'm
anything.
gonna have a little,
You should be embarrassed how quick you go
Let
through
me
that
say what I always
e-cigarette.
say is these guys are fighting over the last couple of sips. Whiskey Business is a Never the Luck production, produced audio-wise by my good friend Mr.
Thank
Greg
you.
Hansberry, and our YouTube channel. Put your thumb back up there. There he
John.
goes, John Whitney on our YouTube channel.
Good
All
seeing
the
you, John.
opinions are those of me and sometimes my reluctant and not so reluctant guests, and never meant to offend, only to entertain. And tonight was very entertaining. So until the next bottle, see ya.